and welcome to Animators Anonymous, Episode 2, recorded on 16th of August 2014. I'm your host, Wesley Boone, and there's nothing else to report on, so let's get straight into it. My next interview is with a friend of mine, Liz Syrnick. She comes from Saskatoon, Canada, and I met her at my Van Art school, class 2D35. Hey Liz.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
This is Liz's first interview, so you'll find her rookie card on the Tumblr as well. So Liz, tell me, how did you get into animation?
First, I gotta tell you that I'm from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
Okay. I don't know Canada's geography completely yet. I don't have to take the test just yet.
Very important.
It's very important. What do you guys call hoodies again?
Bunny hugs. The best word ever. I have a character that's a bunny who wears a bunny hug.
And does it hug people?
And his name is Bunny Hug.
Well, there we go. I've never seen this character. Where is it?
I just invented him like a couple weeks ago.
This is a character. I'm going to market him right now.
Yeah.
I would imagine that would actually kind of work.
It's a plug.
Especially in Saskatoon. Yeah, a pre-plug of something that...
It's
I'm not sure if it's a cartoon.
It's in my brain right now.
Okay, well, now that you've corrected me...
What did you ask?
Lead us through the life of Liz Syrnick, leading up to the point where you became an animator.
Right, okay. So I always super liked cartoons, but I came to animation more so through comics. Animation is sort of a day job for me, whereas my true love was always like comics and manga in particular, like Japanese comics.
Okay.
But now I'm starting to foster a love of animation just for its own merits.
Yeah, you're there and kind of got to do the best you can.
Yeah. I think it was that the animation that I always really loved was, Disney and feature films and stuff. And that's so high, it felt so unattainable that, I don't know. And I really liked the accessibility of comics. So.
Okay. So in the sense of comics, what exactly were you reading that like sort of definitely inspired you to?
Okay, so my friends and I, where it very first began was my friends and I, my sister and myself and two girls that lived down the street from us, Anne and Jill. We used to go to Liquidation World all the time in Prince Albert.
What's Liquidation World?
Okay, Liquidation World is like where they send wrecked merchandise and just merchandise from other stores that didn't sell.
Okay.
And then it goes to Liquidation World, like to liquidate, to get rid of this extra shit.
I've seen warehouses like that. I know there was one dedicated to
it maybe is just a Canadian one. So we would go there all the time, and then we found this old comics bin, and there was a couple single floppies, and they were just totally beat up, and they were amazing. And one of them was Ranma 1/2. Just completely in the middle of a store yard. A floppy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. They used to come in floppies as well.
Okay, I didn't know either.
And one of them was Inuyasha, and one of them was an old manga series called You're Under Arrest, which was by. Do you know You're Under Arrest? Yeah. It was by the same person that did Oh My Goddess.
Okay.
I can't remember their name.
I didn't know it was the same person.
But You're Under Arrest was especially exciting because it had 7, 8, and 9. Like in a row, 3 floppies, and the story continued. Anyways, so and I had no idea what these were. I was like maybe 8 years old, and it was just amazing. And I fell in love with shonen manga, and that sort of started the whole thing.
That's crazy. I've never seen manga like in like a...
Yeah, I've never bought them in floppy form. I've only ever bought them in graphic novels.
Yeah, because I've only seen like sort of the smaller novel-sized...
Probably it was just in the 90s when they were first bringing manga over.
Do you think it was like something that they were doing it just to sort of integrate it into...
Yeah, and it was like assumed that that's how you need to sell comics because that's how all comics were sold in the West, but it just works better for graphic novels, and that's all you ever see in stores these days. So. Yeah.
That was something sort of a little similar with me. I remember where I grew up, we didn't really have a lot of like import with comics and stuff. So even like the superhero comics, which were my preference, we
to each his own, I guess.
Whatever. So with like even then I couldn't get like comics sequentially. It was like, oh, here's a Spider-Man. I guess I'll buy it.
Oh, because were they just secondhand?
Yeah, no. It was like we had it's like a stationery store, CNA, but the one that we had in my town they would you could ask them to order the stuff in, but it was always a little bit pricier. Whereas I would just be like, I'd walk in and be like, oh, I'll just grab whatever is available. So I have like this mishmash of comics. Like I've got like Archie comics that don't follow it, the ones that have the storylines. I've got like X-Men comics that there's this and that, but I'd have to make up the rest of the story in my head. Anyway, the reason why you reminded me of that was because at one stage they started selling also like manga, like comics, like they were just inside this bin, and like they were like, we just want to get rid of these things, the type of bin. So like you pay like well, I mean, for me it was R5. That's like 50 cents for you guys, and that's how much they asked for it. And you just buy like a whole bunch of these comics. And then I remember there was a comic in there called Devilman. So I suppose I have seen the floppy manga, because that one came, and then even had like this little gold stamp on it and came in like I never took it out of its package, but I bought the second one to read because they were so cheap. But it was like this gold stamp, and it was really weird. That was my introduction to sort of the more Japanese.
Yeah. See, and that was my first love. That was my first sort of real cartoon artistic inspiration was Japanese, all Japanese. I came to everything else through manga and through anime, and yeah.
Okay.
There's kind of a funny story about that Inuyasha comic that we had, because it was one of the first times we had seen drawn boobs. There was a monster. It was the very first issue, and it was the monster that jumps out of the well and grabs what's her name, Kumiko, something like that. Remember. Yeah. And the monster has a female torso that is just has boobs. Yeah. And we were like, oh, taboo, my god. And so my sister actually taped a little, because it made us really young, like we were like 8 years old.
Did it even have like the details, like the nipples and everything?
Rumiko Takahashi would draw nipples on her characters, but she wouldn't like color them or make them super detailed or anything. Okay. But yeah, they were straight up. Oh, so it wasn't just boobs, and they had nipples. Yeah, they weren't just those weird round things that you sometimes see in manga, just nippleless boobs. But yeah, so it was, because that's what I love about Takahashi, right? Is her anatomy so good. Okay. So my sister taped a little white piece of paper over it to self-censor so we could read it without feeling uncomfortable.
That's so weird.
But it was still so like, oh my god, so exciting.
I would.
We had to hide it from our mom. Like even the Ranma comic, I think, had some boobs in it.
But for girls to do that, like that's kind of weird to me, because I would assume like with you guys it would be. Well, I suppose
we're not fully grown women with giant boobs. I mean, we were kids. That's super. Like, how would you have felt reading a comic with a guy's dick?
Yeah, but that's still a sexual organ. I mean, that would be the same. Then your comparison would be, the woman's vagina would be the one that's it's like.
Yeah, but not really. It's still nudity.
At least I suppose at that age too.
At that point.
Yeah. I get you. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just seeing you now reading it rather than
exactly.
not so
See,
much
nowadays, like I own porn comics. Like, oh my god, we got to get to that later.
So, okay, sure.
It's very exciting. There's a whole story.
Sure.
Anyways, yeah. So that was me. And Sailor Moon, and then Sailor Moon came on the TV.
Okay.
And I was like, what is this magical thing where people's eyes grow 5 times the size of regular human eyes? And it's so amazing.
So that was actually your introduction to anime then? Like Sailor Moon?
I think so. Yeah. Sailor Moon. I think so. And I got super into it,
they also had those really lanky bodies when they...
Yeah. And it was so stylized that it was easy to emulate the art. And for a kid, it was super easy to just copy the style and be like, oh, look at me, I'm drawing so amazing. Which was super good for me, because I just love drawing the characters over and over. But I got into like looking stuff up on the net and feeling super proud of myself for knowing all their like Japanese names and the real stories, and like, did you know those 2 characters are actually lesbians? And like that character's actually a man in Japan, and like, woo, I knew the inside secrets. No one else gave a shit, but I was like, oh, this is so cool, this is my thing.
She's being that weirdo again.
pretty much.
Yeah, no, I remember I was like, me and some buddies were also like really big into anime. But I was the one who did the same. I was also like...
Yeah. And finding out that jelly donuts in Pokemon were actually rice balls.
Yeah.
And you were like, finally, that makes sense. Because what the hell? That does not... What is that? And sometimes you see actual pieces of rice coming off of it.
But they still do that in games nowadays, too.
Really?
Like in Phoenix Wright, the one Phoenix Wright game made in Japan, but they also do it like where they're supposed to be in Japan, but they're like, I'm in New York, and then it's like not New York.
Oh, they just do that for the translation?
Yeah, I guess.
I thought it was just Japanese people not really caring about doing research.
And
setting this story in America.
It's supposed to be set in like sort of a Japanese world, and then now it's set in America. It's like,
yeah, that's so funny because I'm playing that game right now.
Okay.
And I'm thinking like, really, he's supposed to like be in California or something, and yet the woman's wearing a hat with a rice ball on it.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Anyways, I didn't realize that was just for the American version.
Yeah, well, I guess they got to be careful because you know how jingoistic those Americans can be.
Other countries exist. It might be confusing. That's not regular food. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So that's cool. You have like a deep deep obsession, you could say, like with comics. Any particular, like, not only I guess, you know, your mangas and such, but what about like newspaper comics and stuff?
I didn't really get into strips in a big way, other than like Calvin and Hobbes. That almost feels redundant to say because everyone loves Calvin and Hobbes and it's like everyone's inspiration. But another one too was old Charlie Brown comics, when Snoopy didn't talk and when they were babies, and I think Linus was introduced as a baby. My grandparents at their cabin had a big fat stack of these like graphic novels, I guess, of old Charlie Brown strips, and I fell in love with them because he used to do inking like with a brush pen, and it was really nice. I really hate the later stuff, the stuff that everyone loves. I don't know. I always because I always had these books of his old school stuff, which I liked so much more. I just like the art better.
If I recall correctly,
like
that's Charlie Brown's got a much rounder head. The characters are like sort of more shrunk, right?
Yeah, they look like children and they look more like humans. He gives them anatomy, he gives them perspective, he gives them all that stuff. His like style that he created later on really just evolved slowly. Okay. And I don't really care for it.
Probably out of a need for mass production.
Probably, maybe. I think he had a bit of the what do you call it when your hand shakes a bit, which contributed
Parkinson's?
to his. I don't think it was Parkinson's, but just a lesser thing.
Okay.
I might be completely talking out of my ass.
Yeah. Well.
Anyways, for strips and Garfield actually, I used to read Garfield all the time.
Have you seen? Have you been on the internet? Have you seen Garfield without Garfield?
Yes, I love Garfield without Garfield. There's Garfield minus Garfield, and then there's Garfield without Garfield. One of them gets rid of Garfield's speech balloons, so that it looks like, or like thought balloons, so it looks like John's just talking to his cat, like what would actually be happening. And one of them they get rid of Garfield entirely. Yeah, okay, which can be magical.
Yeah.
Oh my god, where it's just John acting like a lunatic.
My favorite one, and then it's not the best one, but it's my favorite, is where he's like, there's one panel, nothing. Next panel, too much rice. Third panel, there's just rice everywhere, and I'm like. This just makes me laugh. So.
My favorite one is just John sitting at a counter and he's holding the phone and he's like, okay, bye. And he's like, I just got like broken up with, or someone just canceled our date. And then he puts his head on the table and he's like, I'm so alone.
Oh shit.
And there's no punchline or anything. It's just like, I'm so lonely.
Because I guess you're supposed to know that Garfield says something.
Because he would say something, something hilarious, but
obviously gets denied.
So funny.
It's fantastic. I mean, if you look at it like if you didn't know about the Garfield element, I think it would be way more tragic than what they are.
Yeah, it would be confusing.
Yeah, I don't know.
You wouldn't really understand what the point of the joke is, but yeah. So not big into strips except for ones that sort of. Yeah. I never really read them regularly in newspapers, though, other than, like... I always thought that the newspaper was only reprinting. I never thought that they actually printed old, like, new comics. It never really even occurred to me that people nowadays were still making strip comics. Yeah. Because they only ever had, like, reprints of Blondie and those weird ones where everyone's just ghostwriting for everyone. And the original creators are all dead, and they're just continuing forever. Those zombie comics. So that's my experience with strip comics. I was always more so into manga, shonen manga in particular. I don't really care for shoujo or whatever you call it. The boy mangas, not the girl mangas. For those not in the know about the lingo.
I used to know the lingo, and then I just gradually fell out of it.
Pretty much, I know as much lingo as can get me by, and I know that shonen is the one that I like. So, The one with fighting, where people fight.
Yeah.
So that's what I like. I like comics where people just fight. But I never really cared for superhero comics.
So like you like the fighting, but minus the superhero. So like Dragon Ball Z was never an interest.
Oh, Dragon Ball Z, I love.
Oh, okay.
When I say superheroes, I don't mean like super powered. I love superpowered characters. Just DC, Marvel, those big fat studios where the art looks like a photograph that someone has just traced lines over, and it's just so polished and and it's so not boring. It's not like I like the ones that are really like almost like a storyboard where like every single action is taken into account, whereas those other big comics it feels like just single drawings with just like speech balloons everywhere.
I will admit, I mean, there was definitely that time period with all the comic systems that was, I would say, like, there was like this massive saturation. But I think if you do yourself a favor, maybe like go to the library and find like old Batman detective comics.
I think those
before
I
he became
enjoy.
Before he became Super Martial Arts, where he was like more focused. Like I think you might enjoy that a bit more. Maybe you'd even find more respect for Batman. It's just I do like the sort of like super genius, super detective Batman nowadays because I don't know. I mean, it's I like to sort of have that adventure. And then Marvel seems to be going the way of like movies now, and they're just making $1 million a minute. So
yeah. I think for the main thing for me, the turnoff was I just didn't like the art style. I don't like the realistic art. I much prefer cartoony, caricature, stylized things, which is why manga was such a huge draw for me. Another style of comics I really like that never really gets a proper shake or people don't talk about a lot is like the independent comics, like American and Canadian independent comics, where a lot of them are just memoirs or diary comics or like just weird experimental stuff like Zap Comics or like all of R. Crumb's weird ass stuff. Were you at the Art Spiegelman exhibit?
Yes, I was.
In the museum? Yeah, so Mouse I really like. And like there's a comic in Toronto, I don't know if he's still there, called Seth, who did a lot of just like those diary comics. Okay. A lot of really nice black and white brushwork.
Okay.
I'm very cultured. Basically,
yeah,
I'm like the intellectual comic collector.
I don't want just roughhousing and girls with popping out of their tops. No, I want a serious story.
Also, sometimes with some boobies, sometimes with some fighting.
Gotta mix it up, right? Have you read Scott Pilgrim author? Have you read his new...
Well, I was waiting to get to that for when you asked me about my inspirations.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Scott Pilgrim. Because he fits into all those categories. Yeah. Independent, black and white art, caricatures, but yet fighting and good and brushwork.
Okay.
It's the perfect comic.
All right, well, I guess we'll cover a little bit more of that in
Lost at Sea, his first graphic novel.
Oh, I haven't even read that. I've honestly only read his Scott Pilgrim stuff.
Yeah. Don't get me started on Bryan O'Malley.
Okay. Bryan O'Malley.
Well, I mean, we will when we talk about that.
Yeah. Okay, well then, let's jump back a bit to cartoons in general. Any particular cartoons in your youth that you can say in with me it was never really an idea of that's something I'm gonna do, and then it really hit me much later in my life where I was like, oh right, I could be a cartoonist, right? But was there any point in your life where it was like, oh, you watched a cartoon and was like I want to do that?
For me, my big things were Pokemon and Sailor Moon, but that was Japan, so that was like another world. It never really occurred to me that I could make anime, because that's not really a real thing for me to... That's not a career path at this point.
Yeah.
Or ever was in my life, really. Yeah, I don't know. You mean in my youth, particularly?
Oh, anything again... Mostly what I'm asking is really more so your favorite cartoons, really, that you can sit and say yeah, man, these things really sort of... Well, this is what I want to... it doesn't necessarily even mean to have to be a cartoon that was oh, you watched it and then you decided that's what you want to be. It could also be something along the lines of you look back at it fondly and be like, yeah, it was...
Pokemon was a big inspiration for me.
Even with all its...
Don't really understand why.
Stop frames and just the mouth moves.
Yeah, well, that's what I like. I don't care about the animation. I care about the story. And the story was, dumb as hell, obviously. But to a kid, that's super fun. And I fell in love with Team Rocket. And they invaded my brain. You know how people get those crazy obsessions? That was me and Team Rocket. And I don't know what happened, but Yeah. Man. Fan fiction, fan art.
You made fan fiction?
I never actually published anything, and I never actually
read?
finished any stories. It was like I randomly wrote Stream of Consciousness and made it about Team Rocket and tried to make a story, but I didn't understand how writing worked. I was probably like 10 at the most at this point, maybe 12. But fan art. I do so much Team Rocket fan art. I think I have it kicking around. I'm going to show you later.
Sure. We can put it on the website at www.lizsfanart.com.
Yeah, Liz Syrnick draws teamrocket.com.
That would be an interesting one of those live, those
I would pretty much
streams.
never run out of content, so it's good.
Yeah. Well, that being all said, actually, when looking at your work, your style is original enough that it doesn't seem to be inspired from...
Yeah, well, once I got older and started to really seriously get into cartooning, anime just totally fell out of my favor. I sort of had a brief breakup with anime entirely, and I started to really explore Western animation in a big way, and I tried to... So now I'm really consciously trying to make my art Westernified whenever I can, because I start to feel that just not... and not in like that Japanese style creeping into my art at all times. So.
But like, I don't know, what I've noticed sort of in the design sense of a lot of like modern Western cartoons, like TV stuff, is that big eye element is definitely there, but it's not like the big eye of the anime.
Yeah.
It's like there's this big eye, and then like the pupils is sort of just like this little black thing. That's it, But I think the idea of the big eyes represent, big eyes, small head, or, or big head.
Yeah,
but, like...
just the cute look.
Yeah, the cute look, right? I think that's definitely sort of seeped in, because that wasn't really...
Yeah. Well, that has always been around. Like, if you actually look at Bugs Bunny and all those characters, their eyes are friggin' huge. Okay. Mickey Mouse's eyes, if you ever actually try and draw him on model, his eyes are about 3/4 of his head.
Oh, no, you're right. Yeah, okay.
I think it's just that humans, they always thought that humans need to be...
Anatomically correct.
Yeah. And it's only now that they're starting to realize, stylized humans are quite fun as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
Right. That's my 2 cents.
That's your 2 cents. Any particular reason now, like why you've moved into animation?
Pretty much, I did research and I've realized that Canada has a lot of animation jobs. It's economic reasons. I always assume if I was a more self-reliant, gregarious person, I would try and make a career for myself in comics, but I'm just not self-sufficient enough. I just can't freelance, really. I don't think I could. And I like the idea that there are actual steady work jobs in Canada that you can do 9 to 5 and get paid for. And I love animation. I do. Like, it's part of the whole wheelhouse of cartooning. But it's a job. It's just there are animation jobs. Yeah. You can't go to a comics studio and say, hey, I mean, maybe you could, but it's mostly like, it's all connections and...
I do think with a comic studio, because I listen to like other interviews with people who do get into like the comic studio, but it's usually freelance work. Do the in-house stuff.
Even when it's like you're working for someone else, it's more like you're one free agent working for another free agent who is, you're hired out to do their brush work or the line work for someone else's pencils, or you're hired to do the art while someone else does the writing. And it's all still very small and contained, and you have to watch yourself, and you have to be really diligent about getting your fair pay and all this behind the scenes stuff that I just maybe one day we'll try and do, but right now...
Well, I mean, I've mentioned it to you before, I'd love to help. The thing is, it's like, I'm not the bit, like, I know my limitations when it comes to my art, right? And I don't think I'm the worst artist, but I do know, in comparison to some of my friends, you in particular, I know where I stand. So it's like, I would love to help you do stuff, but how's this? How is your writing? Because I remember that cartoon, that comic that you made when we were under Steve, and like, I mean, it was a nice little story, but it was a slice of life. Now, would you be at all like? Because I could see how that could fit. Like, you could make like a longer drawn out story in that fashion. But would you ever want to do something more adventure-esque at all?
I would. I don't know how. I've never really written a complete story. I've written bits and pieces. I've written short stories. That's mostly how my brain works. I just don't have the ability to make a plot.
Well, in that regard, because I usually offer my inking skills out, because as my standalone drawing is okay, but my inking skills I find are a little bit better, and then my coloring is decent. I would say, would you be like, you know, talking over a podcast here, so it's like nothing has to be written in concrete, but yeah, like you could do the drawings, I could do the inking. Together we could write the story.
We could be a super team.
Yeah, you know,
together,
just to get
we would be unstoppable.
Well, you know, until we're not making any money.
It would be very hard to stop us. Not impossible, almost unstoppable.
Anyway.
So if someone could come to me and say, Liz, do this artwork, I will pay you this much money, go, then yeah, that would be great. But also, I mean, even then, there's still an onus on you to, like, if you're working from home, you still need to have the ability to make yourself work.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go into an actual place, an actual studio, and you have a boss looking over you, and every week there's a certain quota you have to hit, and if you don't hit that quota, then you get in trouble, and like, that is beautiful to me. I love that, which to a lot of people is like the bane of their existence, which is why they get into freelance. Whereas if I could have that in a freelance
you just need that structure
world, I need the structure. I need the whip cracking over me. Otherwise, it never works. I've tried to do freelance work mostly for friends, but one was I was getting paid for it, and the end result, it was decent. I would show people. I wouldn't be ashamed of it, but I really felt bad because it wasn't as good as I could do because I just didn't have that daily motivation. I crammed it till the end in a way that just was unacceptable for professional work, and I just. Yeah. And that was the point where I sort of realized, no, I need a professional workplace structure.
Okay. Well, let's step a bit to the side of that then, because, you know, your history is interesting. But
ask me about my inspiration.
That's where I'm getting to. What are any particular people and or... Well, yeah, people,
Person?
I guess. Yeah, I was gonna say animal, but whatever. any animals that inspire you? If you were an animal, what would you be? No. Like any artists.
I just want to talk about Bryan O'Malley.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah.
Shoot.
So this is the Bryan O'Malley part of the podcast.
If you want to skip, I understand. At 10 minutes, we'll be done.
So my friend, I had a best friend in high school. He's still pretty much my best friend. Me and Matt would like just look up cool artists online. That's how I found about Corey Lewis. Ray, he goes by online. He made a comic called Shark Knife. He's another like independent freelance comics, like punk comic scene guy. I love that. Love that. And Bryan O'Malley was part of that whole like group, and he had these comics online called Style, where it was just sort of like slice of life of these girls in high school, and I loved them. I fell in love with his art style, and they were so funny and cute. And he had a graphic novel coming out called Lost at Sea, and I just browsed through his art constantly. I don't think he even had any published comics at this point. But I was waiting for Lost at Sea, and then the graphic novel Lost at Sea came out, and it changed my life. I can't even begin to, like, this isn't exaggeration. It probably saved my life. Because I was super depressed as a child. Like, I've been depressed since birth. Is that a thing? It's a chronic thing. I was depressed since birth. I have never not been depressed. Anyways. So, Lost at Sea just spoke to me in a way that nothing else ever had. And it was... it was funny, it was cute, it was short, succinct, which is what I love in stories. I love short.
Yeah.
And concise.
Is that why superhero comics, for example,
probably
bum you out? Because there's never any end scene?
There's not, like, satisfaction. But it was so... it just spoke to me. It was like it was written exactly for me, saying, Liz, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. And his style is so simple and clean that it was easy to emulate. So that sort of became my go-to artistic inspiration in a big way. And so I was like #1 Bryan O'Malley fan before Scott Pilgrim even was out. Yeah. So I was eagerly anticipating the new. I had it on pre-order at the bookstore, and when it came out, and I was so excited. No, you know what? And I had all his albums, because you might not know this, but Bryan O'Malley makes music just for fun. I don't think he makes any money off of it. It's just for fun. It's like super lo-fi amateur, him recording from his house with friends, which I also love. I have all his albums. So,
Awesome.
Legit super fan
I can
over
tell.
here.
Wow, I was
way.
going to challenge you, but you've won.
So I was so into Scott Pilgrim, and then when the second and third and everything graphic novels started coming out, and then I was so excited, and then the movie came out, and Scott Pilgrim just exploded, and I had that weird feeling for the first time in my life of like, ooh, my thing. The thing that's mine. But then at the same time, I was so happy for it. And it's just so glad that, like, oh my god, you can make so much comics now and have all the money and financial security and artistic validation. And I was just so happy for him. But also weirdly guarded of my thing, my Scott Pilgrim.
I was reading Scott Pilgrim before it was cool.
Yeah, I was. And I have Seconds now, his new graphic novel. And I still go to his website all the time.
How is the Seconds? I haven't read it yet.
It's really good. It's pretty much classic Bryan O'Malley. It's got some fantasy elements. It's got...
I've heard some good things about it, like some
funny characters and cute scenes and stuff. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing I... Like,
it's more like a novel than like a manga, but it's still really good.
That's the thing I enjoyed about the Scott Pilgrim stories in particular. It was like, none of the characters were ever tropey.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. It felt like people you know in your life, like you and your friends.
Yeah, like I identified a lot with Scott, like in the things.
Me too.
And so, but it was just so perfect because it was when I picked it up. I think Scott's 24 in the story, and and I picked up it when I was 24. It was like literally like everything was just aligning with it. I was like, he's a bass player. I played bass.
You know what was cool too is that I was reading those style comics, his like self-contained little mini comics about these girls in high school, one of which was named Kim Pine, one of which was named Lisa Miller, one of which was like, I can't remember the other one, but they were all characters that you saw became these actual characters in Scott Pilgrim, and you saw their beginning.
Now, does he do that in Seconds at all? Like, are there any references to...
No, like, it's not like it was a reference, because the style comics weren't it was just a self-published webcomic. Okay. Hey? It was just like, oh, that's where the character came from. And then he decided to use this character, and you could tell that he had been developing it, and then he used them with this story with this other character named Scott Pilgrim, who of course came from the Plum Tree.
That would actually explain why there are so many characters in the Scott Pilgrim book that actually, like, every
that
character
know each other
has
and
an
they
interaction.
Yeah, because he's been, like how everyone has their OCs and that they play with all this time.
Yeah, but usually, like, when you read, like, a story like that, there's, like, okay, there's the main character, and then there's the secondary characters, but in Scott Pilgrim there were, like, genuine tertiary characters that had this life that interacted with the I think there's...
It's because he's been writing them forever, right?
Yeah, that's... I didn't even think... Honestly, I didn't know anything about him before Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim, I fell into completely accidental. I think it was around about the third book. And... Yeah, I can't remember. Is that Scott Pilgrim versus the Universe?
Versus the World.
No, Versus the World's the first one, isn't it?
Nope, Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life.
Precious Little Life, yeah, okay. Okay, well, the third book was the one I found it, like, I was online and somebody posted a reaction image or something. I was like, I like that art style, and then I did research, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I bought the online comics, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I bought the physical copies, and then I bought the physical copies again when the box set came out.
And now they have colored versions of them and hardcovers, and I'm like, oh, can I...
Those hardcovers look so good.
I'm thinking I might actually buy the colored versions of like my favorite graphic novels, but I might just buy them all again.
I can't afford to carry books around with me anymore. It's getting too heavy.
So many comics. So that's my Bryan O'Malley history. Wow. Actually, I've been, and he's married to Hope Larson, who also is a comic artist, an independent comic artist.
Okay. I don't
know Hope Larson? Well, they're sort of Canadian comics people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Although they live in LA now, but.
Well, the thing is, I always find out I find out like a lot of things that I really loved. Part of this weird sort of transition for me into Canada was like a lot of things I loved came from Canada. It was just so weird. I was like, I love this comic. Oh, this is Canadian.
Canada has just a huge cartooning culture, which for me as an adult, it was like, this whole time, Canada? Because living in Canada, you assume that everything good and culture, all your pop culture comes from the States, because like 90% of all of our culture comes from the States. All our TV shows, all our foods.
But even that, you find it's like, oh, that cartoon or whatever I really like that's from the States, directed or worked on by a Canadian. It's like this weird sort of connection, and I was like, that's weird. And then, you know...
We're great. we're the best, pretty much. I'd say
it made sense for me to come here at least. Any other inspirations?
Well,
sure
I mentioned
it doesn't
Rumiko
just end
Takahashi,
there.
the artist of Ranma 1/2 and a bunch of Japanese comics.
I used to always call it Ranma half. Never 1/2. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just...
Oh.
I never heard it said. It was like whenever I read the book, I
don't-
was like, oh, Ranma half, and then...
I don't know how it's actually said.
I think it is 1/2. That's
Or
that's
like
what
Ranma and a half? Does that make sense?
I've heard mostly Ranma 1/2. Like,
Yeah.
every time somebody talks about it, they say 1/2.
Because
so.
it was one of the first Japanese comics that I had, I pronounced everyone's names wrong in my head. Of
Okay.
course, it was Ranma Seotome
Okay.
and
Seotome.
a Kane.
Yes.
What was her last name? Oh, I don't know.
Kane, such a weird name.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you get Akane and then you get Kane. Like, Kane is an actual name. Like
Yeah.
Kane, the way
It sort of worked.
So.
It was really funny watching the anime and being like, who? Akane?
I don't know these people. This didn't say it right.
That's crazy.
TV ruining my favorite stuff.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Yeah. Other inspiration. Well, I mean, obviously Walt Disney.
Of course. Nine old men.
Disney was such a thing. It was so on a pedestal. I never knew animators, specifically animators, though. Like, coming to school and hearing people being like, oh, yeah, I love Glenn Keane's work and Ward Kimball's work. And I was like, who? What? People actually know the names of animators? I don't even... So, not really for me. Although, Disney movies were a big inspiration, obviously. That almost goes without saying. And all, like, Don Bluth movies, too. And what's the other one?
You know, he's the second cousin of Mitt Romney.
I am not surprised.
So I wonder if he's Mormon as well. But anyway. He's good with money, I suppose.
The Swan Princess. All those other movies that everyone thinks are Disney but aren't Disney. I was the kid that knew, that's not actually a Disney movie. That was made by DreamWorks. Oh. Because I'm in the know.
Hi, I'm Liz, and I'm going to tell you what's up.
Yeah. Did you know that in Japan,
like friends are like, oh,
Sailor Moon's name is actually Usagi, and that means rabbit.
Bunny.
Because there's a rabbit on the moon, and her name is Bunny in the translated manga version.
I just knew Usagi meant rabbit. I didn't know that was why they did it. Actually.
Yeah, so her name is Bunny in the manga.
Actually, that brings me up to an interesting question. Recently, I just noticed the man in the moon. And I know that's weird to hear, but back home, we refer to it as the rabbit in the moon.
Is that a southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere thing?
I don't know, but the thing is, it's like...
Japan sees a rabbit in the moon,
yeah,
too.
But
That's why
they're
Sailor
northern
Moon
hemisphere.
is Usagi. No, aren't they more equator?
No, they're northern hemisphere.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So you just saw the man?
Yeah, like...
Isn't he grumpy?
Yeah. I was like, but that's
he's
the thing.
so
it's
old.
Like, in my entire life, I'm looking at these freaking marks on the moon. I don't see a man. I'm looking like a body. Like, and I'm like looking and I never see it. And I'm like, whatever, the rabbit's fine. I see the rabbit because you can see it like standing on its hind legs and standing up in its ears.
It's like, it's really long and skinny, hey?
Yeah.
And it looks like it's... Because
it looks
Japan
more like
has
a
a
hair.
rabbit mashing cheese. He's doing something. He's hunched over and he's doing something. That's why Japan always has rabbits with cheese referencing with the moon.
Okay, well, you've just informed me of something new. The way I see the rabbit on the moon, it's like he's standing like on the edge of the moon, and then like his ears go back, like it's like
okay.
So I don't know.
All right, you have to draw. A
I suppose I can see how. I don't know. Whatever. My point is, I saw the man on the moon for the
That's
first time.
fascinating. I never knew other places than Japan, so I didn't really.
It was like the thing is like we also like back on we referenced the man on the moon too because I mean we are still Western, but I just always remember seeing the rabbit in the moon because that's what my mom told me. So it could just also be me because I've never asked anybody else up until this point. Because when I noticed the man in the moon, I'm like, oh, it's a face.
Well, because there's so many cartoons of the man in the moon from like America,
but it's always a guy coming out of it. It's like,
did it seem weird to you? No, often it's just the moon being a face.
I don't know.
You know Crater Face? On Futurama where the Crater Bender he sticks they're on the moon amusement park and Bender shoves the beer bottle into Crater Face's eye. It's just a big guy in a costume with a big moon for a head.
Okay. Yeah,
and it's referencing another short film where a rocket flies into the moon's eye, and the moon has a face.
Yeah.
So you weren't just like really weird coincidences that all these things are giving the moon a face, an old man face.
Well, that's again, you see, to me, I'm looking for this body on the shape on the moon, and then when somebody gets like, here's the man on the moon, I get what they're saying. It was just never like. I never cared enough, also, is the thing. Like, you're like, oh, okay, it's just the man in the moon, continue with my life. And then I was like, because we had a really nice moon the other night, and I was just looking at the sky, and I'm like, I'm going to see this Man in the Moon. And then it just, everything clicked. Like, and I'm like, oh,
yeah. Once you see it, it's really weirdly prominent.
Yeah, and then, so like the face makes way more sense to me now than the bunny does, but it was just, I don't know. It was weird. I don't know, this is not animation. This is not Moon Anonymous. This is Animation Anonymous.
Or maybe it can be both.
We could. Let's talk about the fake lunar moon.
Okay, let's talk about
conspiracies.
sexy comics.
Oh, yes.
Because I've got a really good story.
Are these also your inspirations?
I've got a good story for sexy comics. I love sexy comics. So I grew up in a Christian household, so I kind of ended up being a bit of a prude.
Oh, okay.
And it was only when I was an adult that I really came out of my shell that way.
Well, what I want to know, are we talking about sexy comics like manga sexy comics, or are we talking about like Tijuana Bibles? Like those little books that like...
The hell is a Tijuana? Oh, like a Tijuana Bible?
A Tijuana Bible, I guess.
I don't know what that is either. I just know the word Tijuana.
Yeah, okay. I think it's either that. It's basically like a little book about, like a matchbox, or two matchboxes next to each other. It's about that big, and then it's also like, it'll usually be whoever's the popular characters at the time.
Oh.
You know, like it's not like, so you'll find ones of like Popeye, and he'll like, oh look at this olive oil, and then they start doing sexy things. And then,
no, I don't even...
But they're like really small, they're like 5 pages big.
Huh.
So I'm guessing we're talking about full-scale comics.
Yeah, okay. Actual comics.
Okay.
Europe has a huge industry of just like porn comics, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thing you buy. And also now you can just go online because people just do them for fun and profit.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily like a actual industry though, or at least I don't know.
I think it's mostly freelance.
It seems like it's mostly
I think even back then, because it's always copyright issues and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I mean, even doujinshis are like...
There's a couple really of the more famous ones that I really like Curvy, and Chester. Oh, what is it called? Chester 5000, who is a robot.
You know more about
a sex robot from Victorian times, and he gets it on with some sexy ladies.
That's weird.
And
there
it's
were no
amazing.
robots in those times.
It's amazing. And there's a bunch of others that I like reading. But my boyfriend was in Europe for a friend's wedding for like 2 months or something, a long time, and he was staying with some friends in Scotland. Who was it? His friends in Scotland? Anyway, he was staying with friends in Europe. No, it was his friends in Austria, and they had a clause like in their attic when they had bought their house. There was a huge box from the previous resident who just, I guess, died or didn't want to take them with him or something.
It is smut.
Belgium smut.
Yeah.
So it's mostly French language, but it's all from. It was published in Belgium, and it was just this huge collection. But they really wanted to, and so Michael and I, of course, were Skyping and talking this whole time. And when he told me that those existed and that his friends had them, I was like, oh my god, you have to bring them back for me. You have to. You don't buy me souvenirs.
Yeah.
Bring me back sex comics from Belgium. My god.
Did he know you liked sex comics before this?
No, well, he knew I liked sex. We were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, and he knew I loved comics. But it was just
those are not the two things you put together. It's like...
Yeah, but I think he knew that I did love novelty. Him and myself really like weird novelty stupid shit.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh my god, Christmas came early, this is amazing. And so when he came, he wasn't able to bring me as many as I wanted, because his friends wanted to sell them to stores and actually make a profit on them, because they were like high end, the best. There was a whole collection from this comic artist called Milo Manara. He goes by Manara. I think he's Spanish or something. Anyways, so like famous artists, not just nobodies. And he brought me back 3 comics, and they are the greatest thing you'll ever read in your life. And one of them is a comic adaptation of a smutty book. I think it's like from Victorian times, called The Story of O. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, not like the Marquis de Sade, like in as much as it's not as like about torture, but it's as famous as his writing. Like if you reference the Story of O, it's a smut that people take seriously. Okay. They're like, yeah, it's about sex and it's smut, but it's really well written. It's like high-end art. And I have a comic version of The Story of O, and it's amazing, and it's all about S&M, and I love it to death.
From Victoria times?
Yes. Well, The Story of O is from like the 20s or the 40s.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's just set in Victoria times?
No, sorry. No, yeah, I'm wrong. It was set in the Edwardian times, like the 1900s.
Okay, yeah. Wait.
Maybe I am insane. I don't know what I'm saying. In the past.
Okay.
Old people wearing slips, garter belts, I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds more...
They have sexy fun times in a giant,
That's all that matters.
in a S&M mansion.
Yeah.
It's good times.
Yeah, I suppose nowadays those comics, I guess, are probably more online. I guess the magic of them being printed.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I suppose, again, doujinshis are printed out a bunch back in Japan. I mean, you go to, like, fan expos and...
Yeah! I went to one anime convention in my life, and I was amazed at the huge doujinshi, like, collection.
Yeah.
Like, they look really professionally printed, and they were in, like, comic, like, graphic novels, and I was like, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like, it's crazy details. Not that I
You could
know.
see your favorite characters banging on comic
and
pages.
sometimes not even your favorite characters.
Just
I saw
characters.
I saw something on Tumblr recently. It was like a collection of... I want to say... Okay. I say GIFs now for GIFs or GIFs. Because,
I still say GIFs.
Yeah,
because I'm a hard ass.
Because people couldn't choose, and then there's this YouTube channel that he calls them GIFs because that combines the two. So that's what I say now. But every now and then people are like, what is a GIF? So just disclaimer. So there was this GIF collection on Tumblr where it was finding a Disgaea or Disgaea, I think it's pronounced Disgaea. Doujinshi with like really high detail where the characters have sex, and then like the characters like yee, like really happy. Then finding out that it's the penguins are having sex with everybody, and then below that it's like this really sad face.
Is that like a real thing?
Yeah.
There's this amazing doujinshi about penguins having sex.
Crazy detailed, but it's the penguins, like they've got these muscular bodies, and it's like really weird.
Yeah, for the penguinophiles out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll admit I have read some really weird doujins because you're like okay, and then it's like, why is this happening? This makes no sense. I don't care. This is not. Well, I'm not reading it for the story. Let's just get that out of the way. Okay, cool.
I want to make some sexy comics.
Really?
No, I don't. Maybe I do one day.
When you're Granny Liz and you're then you can be a dirty old granny.
That's what I plan to be.
Yeah, I've thought about it, like also drawing. I like drawing. You've seen the proportions that I use on my ladies.
Yeah.
They're a bit ridiculous. And the thing is, but I want to draw the bombshell. I want to draw the.
Yeah.
I like the pin-up girl, and I want to get that nailed. And I know I'm still screwing around, but I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
But I've dabbled a bit, but I've never there's nothing that I've drawn that I like. I'm like, I wouldn't touch myself to that. So it's like I don't want to show it to the world and get. But there's most likely somebody who would, because there are weirdos out there.
Mm-hmm.
I've dabbled in it, but nothing that's come to worthwhile.
Yeah.
You have you ever tried it at all?
I haven't tried, but I have some stories in mind that I actually would like to.
Oh, so you've actually even got stories.
I've got sort of.
Now these
got
girl
things that I
stories or
like.
these boy stories?
What does that mean?
Okay, girl stories. I'm also just generalizing here because obviously girls can do whatever and boys can do
Oh,
whatever.
you mean like a romance novel?
Yeah,
basically?
because girl stories are like, oh, there's a little bit
Not
of
so
suspense or whatever, and a boy's story is like, hey, there's a girl.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's like, and I mean, I get disappointed sometimes.
I made a rude gesture there, by the way.
Yeah, she made an air hump. I ignored it gracefully. Yeah, but I'll admit, sometimes when I'm reading a doujin or a sex comic or whatever, it's I do sometimes get into the story, and sometimes you do. It's like, oh, this is a really cool set of characters, and then I've read ones where there's there's 40 pages, and the first 20 pages are just set up, and it's oh wow.
You know what? I have a funny story about that. When I was at that anime convention, I knew I had to buy a hentai manga. What the hell's the word? The gay hentai.
Oh, Yuri?
No, there's a specific
Yaoi. Yuri is girl on girl.
I think I called it yaoi in my head, and I think that's wrong.
Well, if we're gonna use the Japanese phonetics, it's probably yaoi. Yeah.
Anyways, so I was like, okay, I gotta get a yaoi manga for my one friend who was gay. So I was like, yes, and he liked comics too. So it was like, yes, double whammy of this is awesome, but also a hilarious joke between us. And so I found one that was sort of I didn't really read them or look through them, but I found one that was 4 short stories. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, this would be perfect. So I bought it for him, and he read it, and then I eventually read it. and we were both like, what is this? And it was the girliest thing. There was like no sex. I was like, I have read way smuttier things that were not marketed as porn. Like, this is so girly.
Oh, there's no porn.
The characters even looked like girls because they're always drawn so like bishonen. I was like, what is this? It was so disappointing. But yeah, so that's my foray into yaoi.
I have a little story actually when it comes to okay, so this is what happens. I was
hentai confessions. This should be another like segment.
Oh,
now
for
it's
sure.
time for hentai
From lunar
confessions.
to hentai. Let's do this. No, okay. So basically, what happened was I was getting like hardcore into manga and like was also like reading a bunch of mangas and stuff. And whenever I couldn't buy new manga, my elder sister was also very into manga, and I would just go to her place and pick out books and whatever, and read them. And happy days. I read like Oh My Goddess from her and all that stuff. And love Hina. She loved sort of the romance stuff. So the one day I can't remember the name of the story, but I picked up this one book and I'm reading it, and I think it was a once-off, and I'm reading, and it's the story. I remember the story was there are these two human tribes, and they're running out of food or something, and in order for survival they need to join their tribes together to grow and then get hunters together or whatever. And so the one chieftain's like, but I've only got a son, and the other chieftain's only got a son. So we're gonna dress up my son as a girl because he was very sort of wafy, very bashoujo as well. And so I was like, we're gonna dress him up like very skinny and give him like make him look like a girl even more so, and then send him to the other tribe and then have him marry the other guy, and then we're like part of the tribes and everything.
What's their end game? They want them to procreate?
No, they just want them to merge, and then that means
for reconciliation.
Yeah, and then the tribes are together, and then the tribes
okay.
will do whatever, and then it turns out, so like they get married, and they're about to, I guess, consummate their marriage, and so then the guy's like, I'm actually a boy, and the guy replies, I know, and so like that's where I close the book, and I look at the front. And I'm like, because the front looks like a guy and a girl, like, sort of hugging each other. And I go back to the page and I'm looking. And so the whole time the other guy knew this was a guy dressed up as a girl.
Right, so it was a gay love story.
It was a gay love story. And then I like...
And you read it.
And the thing is...
So that means you're gay.
I'm totally gay right now. And the thing is, at that age, I was very sort of like, very, whatever.
Yeah.
So I closed it and I put it down, like, I put it away into my sister's, like, thing. But, like, very nervously. Because she tells me afterwards, I was like, just put that away. And then I looked to my left, and there she is, like, standing with this big smile on her face. Like, she knew what I was reading, and I'm like, I just, like left the room and walked downstairs.
Oh my
Didn't
God.
say a word. So...
That's so funny.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not... even at that stage, I wasn't against gay. It just was such a shock that that's what happened, that I didn't...
Yeah.
Because it was, I mean, it is still fairly new to me in my culture back home. We're very open, but
that's
whatever.
kind of funny. It brings me to another point of, how there's sort of the old cliche of guys liking girl-on-girl action, and yet in manga circles, there's the old cliche of girls really liking guy-on-guy action.
Yeah.
But it's so girly always. And it's like one of them always looks like a girl, or they both look like girls.
You say that.
What is even?
You say that, but most hentai artists, I found out, tend to be women.
Like
the hardcore ones, you're like, whoa, this is... I wouldn't... This is gross. And then it's like written by a female.
Yeah.
What the hell?
They love their sexy comics.
You girls are gross.
Yeah,
sometimes.
we're crazy. Well, we're. It makes sense though, right? Because it's more of a repressed kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're taught not to. So when you do find an outlet of people, and you can be like, yeah, let's go crazy.
I guess.
Then you get all your sexual frustrations out.
And it's also weird, like, those same comics, like, the girls tend to be, like, even more well-proportioned than what the guys would draw. And I'm like, that's just so weird to me, like, I guess, but hypersexual, I mean, I've also seen guys draw guys, like, massively, if you know what I mean. It's
well
like,
endowed.
Yeah, so I suppose there is sort of that
you
power
draw what you
fantasy on
wanna
both
read.
sides. Yeah. Alright.
Oh, have you ever read Gunsmith Cats?
I have.
That's another one that, like, it's not meant to be porno, but it's super hardcore sexy times.
Fan servicey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so funny, like, putting that against this supposedly hentai yaoi that I bought, and I was like, this one has way more sex in it.
So
hardcore S&M sex in it.
So you've gotten those Belgian sexy comics, I guess could be considered Western, but have you read any Americanized or Canadianized
no, I don't
sexy
think
comics?
I have. Mostly it's just online comics, web comics.
Yeah. And they tend to sort of
I
generally
don't even
follow
know where you would go for
I don't even think...
actual, like, mainstream
I guess you have to go to a
porn
porn shop
comics?
for that.
Is that even a thing? Like, yeah, I guess you'd have to go to an actual porn shop
Yeah.
rather than a comic shop.
Yeah. I don't know.
In fact, actually, I asked someone at the comic shop if they had Chester 5000, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, we're not allowed to sell that because it's porn. You probably need a special license to sell whatever indecent material or like specialty.
I mean, I guess it's like
material.
alcohol. It's above 18. Right?
Yeah,
So
you need a particular license.
or 19 here if it is, whatever.
So yeah.
Okay.
But Michael said in Europe, or in some places in Europe, there was like comic shops, and then like, here's your porn comics, here's your other, like, it's a thing. It's just a mainstream. That's where they are.
I do remember when I was in France.
Right in plain view.
I remember when I was in France, we went to, like, you know, where you can get your postcards.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at the postcards, and then we get around, there's these holographic girly postcards, you know, and they were anime girls. They were like, you're like, oh, she's wearing a bathing suit. Oh, she is not. Okay, I'm going to buy this for £1, you know, or whatever.
Not in like a
euro.
special section or anything.
No,
it's just there.
it was like out in the front of the store where a bunch of kids just walked. I was like 16. I'm like, oh, pretty
man.
anime girls. I think I still got those cards somewhere. I'm just trying to remember where they are.
I gotta go to Europe someday.
Yeah, there's just sex everywhere, right? Okay. Well,
that's a country, right? Just one
big
culture.
country. Yeah, just like how Africa is, right?
Yeah, everyone runs with the bulls and wears
berets
and oui, monsieur.
Isn't that Quebec? All right, so I must say you are filling up my podcast, and I want to talk to you again in the future.
Hooray!
I'm sure the
I'm
listeners...
so hilarious.
You're hilarious.
I didn't even make one poop joke. Oh, there it
damn
goes.
It. Well, I want to at least summarize some stuff here about you, at least. Animation style or preferred techniques. Like, what is Liz Syrnick's signature?
I like the loose, sketchy stuff, although my particular work tends to be pretty tight, actually. Like, I mean, like, not sketchy lines and everything. It's more like finished inks.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like quick and dirty comics, like storyboards almost. It's like that's as detailed as I care. I want to get the story. I want to see the characters' expressions. I don't really care about polish so much. I really like those manga Western influenced hybrids. Like Avatar: The Last Airbender to me is just like the perfect art style. It's perfection. Like the best of both worlds. That's why I love Scott Pilgrim so much. It's really simple, clean, easy, recognizable style, characters, not super polished. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that.
I really love line art too, like bone, brush work. Yeah, really nice line art gets me way more than nice color.
Okay.
Give me some sweet lines.
Yeah. I mean, color. I like color in comics. I do, but you know, I've seen some way amazing black and white stuff. You know, like even superhero stuff. Sometimes I love it, like when they just use like one tone of color. You know, like a dark red.
Yeah.
You know,
or in mangas, how they use like those screen tones.
Yes,
that. It's used well.
But otherwise, well, okay. Well, in that case, animation-wise, techniques. Do you like seeing like the final product, like say of a like a Disney or a Pixar animation, where it's like super smoothed out, or are there any like cartoons in general that like, oh, I would like to make it, like say you had the budget, like infinite budget, you know, don't worry about it, your life is sorted out. What type of cartoon would you like end up making? Feature film, short film, TV series.
I like 3D cartoons, but I like them in the way that I like, say, regular Hollywood movies or action movies or something. That is to say, I like them on their own merits, but they're nothing special to me. Some people, animation is animation and they love it, but for me it was always the drawings. So 2D animation, obviously that's the way I would go. But I would really concentrate on the drawings and the animation, not so much the polish. I feel like Disney sort of hit that sweet spot in the early 90s with like The Great Mouse Detective is my favorite Disney movie. So it's not exactly their highest piece of art, but I really love it. And even like The Little Mermaid. But in the later stuff, like Princess and the Frog and even some of those previous ones, they've got such high gloss that it feels like, well, where was your budget concerns? And it doesn't add anything for me. I'd much rather have really beautiful full animation.
So what about Aristocats?
That one's cool. I do really like those old Disney ones where you can see the pencil marks and stuff.
Because which
of course was just because of their budget before, but that's cool. Like,
I remember loving that movie as a kid. Like, I was like, I loved it. It's a great story. I loved the music, you know, like and Thomas O'Malley.
Yeah, I had no idea that was one that people didn't really know, because it was one in my regular roster.
Yeah, we used to go to this restaurant, and then they had like a bunch of cassettes, VHS cassettes, and then like the kids could just do whatever they want. Like, there's you know, put the kids in the playroom, the adults can drink alcohol for the rest of the evening, and I would go and watch like the Disney movies over and over again. And I was like, you know, oh Mom, I'm not finished watching the movie yet, but my parents are completely hammered and they want to go home.
But for me, story structure
super important
is really important. Yeah. So
So what did you think of Princess and the Frog then?
It was not a complete story. They didn't finalize it. It was multiple stories competing for attention. It wasn't, the pre-production wasn't finished, and then they went into, I mean, that's what one of my teachers said, so I'm just parroting him, but from watching it was like the story feels really disjointed. Nothing really worked. I didn't really feel like the character was super engaging. I didn't really think the music grabbed you quite as much as it maybe should have. Especially because Disney movies are known for... That was the thing. It's set in New Orleans. And that was something that really kind of pissed me off, too, is that New Orleans, Louisiana in general, is known for two things. Jazz music and cooking. So you have this movie that you know is going to be a musical. What should your main character's focus be? Cooking, obviously, because that's so visually engaging and fun to watch. No, why isn't she like a jazz singer or a dancer or something with movement and life? And it's like fucking, hey, check out these beignets. Look at this awesome icing sugar we can render on his face. I don't give a shit. Sing something catchy. And it just didn't feel like it was there. And they were frogs for the whole time. And I don't really like animal characters. Or rather, I like animal characters, but I prefer humans.
Okay. And
I loved the guy's human design. He was so sexy. And then he's just gone, and he's a fucking frog, and who cares? I don't care.
For the whole movie.
Yeah, I don't think it failed because of 2D being out of fashion. It failed because it was not a strong story. Yeah. It wasn't a strong movie. So there's my 2 cents. Yeah. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that. Well, also, I don't think Lilo and Stitch is very good. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on that.
You're going to... I don't think you should put your email address.
Them fighting words. Yeah. I know, right? I think it's good. I just don't think it's...
I'll just edit that out.
I was just really surprised that everyone loves it so much. Anyways.
Like, I enjoyed Lilo and Stitch. I thought it was a fun movie. And I enjoyed the cartoon series afterwards.
Oh, the TV show. Yeah,
I thought that was... Like, I think that just sort of built up for me.
Keep in mind, I have a very low schmaltz tolerance. I'm basically schmaltz intolerant. Kind of gives me gassy.
Oh, fantastic.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, also with... We'll get there. We'll get the third one out, I'm sure. Third one out. Anyway, so... Yeah. All right, Liz. Let's finish up with some favorites. Book, film, TV show, cartoon, and video game. Go.
Rotten Tomatoes for all 3. Just kidding. That's a Simpsons joke.
And there was also 5.
You know what? Shut up.
Tell me your favorite book. It can be anything. Comic book, novel.
Okay, I think you mentioned this in one of your other podcasts, but Terry Pratchett. I love the Discworld series. I love his later Discworld series, novels in particular.
The more darker stuff?
Yeah,
he gets dark.
I really like the, what's his name? The Con Man? Going postal and making money.
Like
I love
making
it.
Money was one,
really anything set in Ankh-Morpork, where it really closely mimics city life and like modern foibles rather than like fairy tale foibles, like a lot of his other stories were.
My favorite character is Vimes.
Yeah,
I love Vimes.
Vimes is my second.
Okay.
What the hell? You think I would remember his name if he's my favorite character, right?
Yeah.
Moist. It was because it's a terrible word. Yeah, I think his name's Moist.
I don't remember.
Let's look it up. I should have known this beforehand.
Oh,
anyways,
well, you know.
Terry Pratchett, I love his books.
I remember, I've read most of his books.
The Little Prince, probably, I would say is my favorite. novel. I mean, it's like a novella, and it's like a children's novella. But
technicalities.
when I first found it, and it was one that I first found in the library, and I had no idea what it was. I didn't know it was famous until I was an adult. But it was like my book. It was this crazy ass book, and it had drawings, but the drawings were part of the picture. And I was like, why doesn't everyone do this? I mean, the drawings were part of the story.
Yeah.
I was like, why doesn't every novelist do this? This is amazing. And it was so cool and like dreamy and oh yeah, Little Prince. Love the Little Prince. So wait, what was the question?
Well, favorite books, basically.
Yeah, books. Yeah, Going Postal and The Little Prince.
Okay.
Those are some good ones.
Yeah. I like...
Oh, The Chronicles of Narnia. I really like the 6th book in the series, The Silver Chair.
Okay.
That's the one no one knows exists. It's like the forgotten novel. I don't know why I love it so much.
Ages ago. I don't really...
But there's this one character named Puddleglum, who's this lanky, like, swamp creature who I just love. I love a lanky character. Yeah.
Okay.
Give me a tall, skinny guy in a sweater vest. I got a type.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know what you like. Okay.
So that's books.
Film?
What was it? Films? Okay. Well, The Great Mouse Detective is one that I can just watch over and over and over.
Yeah.
That and Treasure Planet. But it feels redundant to mention animated movies. Geez, I don't even know. Probably Indiana Jones. Those are good
Oh, yeah,
movies.
yeah.
I love Indiana Jones.
What's your opinion on Crystal Skull?
It's not a good movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, the first ones aren't high art. I mean, people forget the, like, exploding Nazi faces and the, like, the ghost knight at the end of the third one. And so then they're like, oh, aliens, it's so stupid. And I was like, have you not seen the other Indiana Joneses? I think the snake being used as a rope was way dumber than the aliens. But, yeah, it's not a good movie.
I think Indiana Jones 4 suffers from what the prequel series of the Star Wars suffers from. It's like people have these like really thick nostalgia glasses on and sort of, you know, forget what made, you know, it's like what Zelda suffers from, the Zelda games. It's like everybody thinks Zelda
nothing
is
can come
this
close
one
to
particular puzzle thing, but it's about this other thing completely, and we've completely lost the track of it. Anyway, I mean, those will, I mean,
I feel like I'm
Indiana Jones
missing
films too.
a big one.
Films?
A big artsy, fancy film.
That no one's seen, it's in French.
Yeah, it's really good. And that is my favorite.
Did you ever see the movie The Men That Stare at Goats?
No. Though I hear it's really dumb.
It is.
Why would
But
you-
it's funny, and it's like in its own way, like in this like sort of really stupid...
Oh, actually, Jim Carrey movies. Liar, Liar. We had a VHS of Liar, Liar that I think we borrowed from a friend and just never returned. But we used to watch that thing just over and over and over. Yeah, that was a good one. I like Liar, Liar.
Awesome. TV shows.
TV shows. Avatar: The Last Airbender.
And the new one?
Nope, not so much.
Not so much?
Legend of Korra, very disappointing. Beautiful art, beautiful animation. I haven't seen the second season, which I hear is better than the first, so I'm still holding out hope.
I hear it does, like, because I also haven't seen past the first season, but like how the ending of the first season's kind of like whatever, lackluster. But the beginning is like amazing, really gets you into it.
Yeah.
Apparently it's like the other way around. It's like whatever, you don't care, and then the ending is like really amazing.
Which is better, which is how it should be.
Yeah.
Adventure Time. Oh, I haven't talked about Adventure Time yet. That's like, I love Adventure Time. Which is surprising because I've never really liked random stupid cartoons. I've always liked continuous story, but Adventure Time.
Well, that's the thing about Adventure Time.
Brilliant.
It has a lot of story in it.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's surprisingly.
Yeah, but like the crazy random adventures, I love. And I don't usually like that art style either. The like really noodly, simplistic, very Western cartoony, but I love Adventure Time. Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Who's your favorite character?
I like them all. I think Finn though. I don't know, yeah, Finn.
Yeah.
Finn and Jake together. Jake's pretty good.
I do like how they
really
progress
like
him.
Finn.
I like what they did with him with Bubblegum Princess and Flame Princess. Like how...
Not a big Flame Princess fan.
But what I enjoy is like... Because, I mean, sometimes, you know, in these cartoons, like... You know, like how girls hate it when girl characters are like fawning over one, you know, character, like one male character or whatever. It's like, I feel that way, and I'm sure other dudes do, like... Get annoyed when one male dude is like, oh, I'm trying to impress this girl this whole time, but she doesn't care about me. It's like, it gets annoying, because it's like... Everybody knows, you know, that... She's not into you, man. Fucking get over it, you know. And it's like, I think I'm glad, like, Finn realized that and moved on.
Well, I would say the opposite. It feels like whenever one character has an intense crush, you know eventually they are going to get together, which is completely opposite of real life and really gets kind of frustrating, but it's sort of what you do in children's cartoons. But it's great that they went a realistic route with Adventure Time. Yeah, so I really like that too.
Yeah, well, I guess that covers TV shows and cartoons.
As far as live action TV shows, I really like Community. The first couple seasons I thought were really excellent.
Alright. And video game?
Zelda. Big Zelda fan.
Okay.
I used to play Ocarina of Time. It's the only game I've ever, beaten. Okay. Not perfected, but beaten multiple times. I don't finish games.
Wind Waker, you haven't played that yet?
I did play Wind Waker. Yeah, I beat that one too, but I used a guide. I used the internet, actually, not a real guide. I just used the internet.
That's even worse.
I pretty much had the internet open the entire time I played Majora's Mask too. I don't think I could beat that game on my own. Jeez. So, but anyways, yeah, Zelda I really enjoyed, and just Mario games and stuff. I just sort of had Nintendo consoles. Yeah. I've never really been a huge gamer, though.
Yeah. Oh, well, I find it's a fun question to ask because
I think Ocarina of Time is the only game I've ever really enjoyed, got big into. But yeah. Okay. Zelda. It got really expensive to keep buying consoles for one Zelda game. General, right? Yeah. It's like a $300 game. Can't really justify that.
Yeah, well...
And this big fucking square sitting under my TV for the rest
just for that year. One game, yeah. I suppose you can always get a... Well, what about getting a 3DS, though? Because, there's a...
See, I might do that. I think what I want to do is get into PC gaming, though. But that doesn't have Zeldas.
That's very true. Well, true and kind of... you'll find on Steam, it won't be Zelda... It won't be the Zelda world, but there are games like it.
Oh, that's good. Because that's what I like. I like a dungeon 3D adventure, but with a bit of a plot.
You'll find lots of those.
Yeah, third person.
Yeah. You can find Liz's Steam at... All right,
Imaginary
Liz.
Things.
Okay, well, I think we're coming up to a close. You've given me a lot of good content. I think you're gonna be a fan favorite if we're fans. We'll get there. Where can they find you? What websites do you want to send your fans to?
I don't really have any websites. I have, LizSyrnick.weebly.com, but that's for me giving to employers.
Yeah, that's just your
to show
CV
my art portfolio. Probably just my Tumblr.
Okay.
Which is Izzy Kinrys, which is IZZYKINRYS, which is a variation on my first name and then my last name backwards, which you might recognize as Dr. Seuss's formula when he would write a book but not draw it. Okay. It would become Theo the Siege.
Okay. I don't know it.
Because his full name was Theodore Geisel. Dr. Seuss! Why didn't I mention Dr. Seuss in books? I love Dr. Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss.
Yeah,
anyway,
for someone
so his
who
name
loves
is
him
Theodore
so much,
Geisel.
you keep pronouncing his name wrong.
Seuss. It's not... His middle name is...
Do you want to fight?
I will school you on Dr. Seuss trivia. His middle name is Seuss, but the pseudonym Dr. Seuss is pronounced Seuss. He has officially said later on, he was like, okay, it's Seuss.
Yeah, because everyone
Dr.
keeps
Seuss
saying it
on the loose. Official titles name it Seuss and pronounce it that way. You're not going to say Dr. Seuss.
I'm going to say Dr. Seuss.
You're going to say Dr. Seuss.
That's how I say it. I always get looks.
Why don't you just call him Theodore Seuss Geisel? And go the full Monty.
Do I look like
gotta pronounce it completely correctly.
Because I have my standards, and that's just one step higher than
Anyways, so I thought that was neat to have a formula for making a pseudonym, so I went.
Okay.
But it doesn't really work, because everyone thinks that it says Izzy Kins, and that sounds stupid. Like a pet name. Anyways.
Well, I can't do it for my name, because Boone is E-noob backwards, and I don't want to be known as a noob. Because I'm not a noob. I'm hardcore.
Not a noob, e-noob.
Electronic noob, yeah.
Yeah, so you're next generation noob. That's pretty cool.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So Izzy Kinrys or izzykinrys.tumblr.com?
I don't know. Is that how Tumblrs work?
Yeah, I think so.
You just search for my name?
Yeah. Well, it'll be on your card and it'll be on the website.
Okay.
That's
me. Oh, I have a DeviantArt too.
Okay.
That's also Izzy Kinrys.
That's my phone. Izzy Kinrys at
DeviantArt.com.
Yeah, I guess izzykinrys.deviantart.com. I guess.
Yeah.
Just search for Izzy Kinrys. I'm sure it'll pop up on Google. Mm-hmm. She's really really talented So I would really recommend it.
It's true. I'm just
and
kidding.
very humble, as you can tell. You can find all of Liz's information, and mine, I suppose, at anonymators.tumblr.com. You can find her character card there. And if you have any emails for me and questions, or want to show up on my show, or want to tell me I'm wrong about something, which, whatever.
You should. He's wrong a lot.
I can't even pronounce names half the time. theanonymousanimators at gmail.com. Available to all. Send me messages. Don't send me spam.
Give me money.
Give me money at my...
That should be your sign-off. Give me money.
I don't have a sign-off yet, but we can give that a test run.
Animation's awesome. Give me money. Have a great night.
Have a great night, you guys.
On the other side of the world, there's an inversion of you. There's an upside down girl. How did I get myself into this mess? This question she's asking herself, guessing her answer. There are no answers. Please don't romance her. Well, I hate to tell you this, but we are in. You're not supposed to be upside down. Well, that's supposed to be a smile, not a frown. How did I get myself into this mess? This question you gotta ask yourself and guess, and your answer is to look right at me and hesitate for me. I can't believe my eyes. You must be looking for some other guy wouldn't understand. You're a complex girl, I'm a complex man, and we can't be bothered with you people anymore. Don't call it a comeback, but I guess I'm back. It took a while for me to wake up, but now it's time for me to put up and shut up, stand up or give up. You may not be the only one for me, but please say you'll be the next. And it may be stupid, it may lead to tragedy, it may lead to heartbreak, double heartbreak, but I think it's worth it. On the other side of the world, there's a million beautifully tragic, fucked up girls. How did I get myself